Welcome, Buff fans, to another analysis video, and I'm Brian Howell. And please be joined once again by good pal Matt Smith from 104.3 The Fan. And Matt, first off, how you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. A
Yeah,
little tired. Been getting after it here lately. Working a lot, doing a lot of the morning show. So that's a lot of 3 a.m. wake up calls. So
yeah,
just day by
yeah.
day here.
That's awesome. Well, as we've told people before, and if you've watched, you know that Matt and I have covered the bus for a long time. And a couple weeks ago, we started doing the Sunday thing. People liked it, and we're like, let's just keep doing this. So,
Yeah,
so we're gonna keep going. Uh, and this is a good time to do it because we got to actually see the Buffs in person on Friday night, and it was the first time since the spring game that we've seen this team not on a computer screen or phone screen on YouTube. So it was nice to actually see. And I don't know about you, Matt. We'll get into this, but like I don't like to read too much into one practice because it is one practice. And but for me, the biggest thing was just it was nice seeing these guys in the flesh and seeing them in jerseys and just getting a sense for things like I saw Rayon Buell and I'm like, okay, he's bigger than I thought he was. He looked. I thought sometimes in video he looks a little smaller than I thought. Then I see him in person, like, no, he's big. Will Shepherd, you see him in person, like, no, that's a big receiver. So that's what I kind of liked out of Friday.
yeah. Obviously, a great opportunity for us to get to put our eyes on everything really for the first
Yeah,
time since fall camp has begun. Especially because there's been a lot of guys that came in that weren't here, in the spring that we got a chance to see in the spring game. So
right.
anybody who's arrived afterwards, really our first chance to see on the field.
Yep.
And definitely interesting to see the difference, year over year. And look, we get to interact with these guys, occasionally here this fall and have them walk by us. So we do, oh, look at, he looks bigger and this guy, like, we can tell a
Yeah.
little bit, but you're right. Like getting to see everybody in full pads and kind of watching how this team kind of conducts their business. It was clearly great to see. And it was a cool little environment down there at All City Stadium. Very cool opportunity to go do that. Hopefully, that's something they continue to do, maybe make a tradition of it, CU, and
Mhm.
maybe take it to a different stadium or something like that every year. I don't
Right.
know. But a very cool opportunity Friday night to connect with a part of the fan base that normally has to trek so long to see you. So it was very unique.
Yeah, I thought it was. And I think there was some chatter that night. People were kind of mocking the fact that they said it was sold out and that the stands weren't filled. Yeah, there was 5,000 passes and they were all claimed. I don't think there was 5,000 people there. I would estimate 3,500 to 4,000. It's hard to tell because so many people were lining the fence. If you just looked at the seats, like, oh, they didn't fill this thing. Well, so many people were lining the fence. But I also think, Matt, that it was 1 week notice. We found out about it and the world found out about it 1 week before. It's a Friday at 6:30. And as Adam and I talked about, anybody that knows Denver, that's not an easy time to get to that point, to get to All City Stadium at 6:30 on a Friday, right? And lots of people are getting home from work, things like that. I do think that had that been something that they announced over the summer, that hey, we're gonna do this, that would have been packed, don't you?
Yes, with more planning, they definitely would have
Yeah.
had that place packed. And even still, they had a bunch of people outside the actual gates of everything, kind of lining the
Yeah.
fences, taking a
Hmm.
look at it. The attendance is whatever. It was 6:30 on a Friday. I mean,
Yeah.
let's just be real. That's a terrible time to navigate Denver. 25 is a two,
Right.
and downtown Denver is crazy. So it was just a cool opportunity to do it. I imagine they probably couldn't do it on the weekends because they were probably booked. And the reason
Yeah.
they didn't do it at Folsom is because it was set up for a concert. So
Yeah.
all things considered, last minute kind of slapping things together, I think it came off nicely.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it'd be cool. To your point, it'd be cool to make it an annual tradition and maybe announce it over the summer. Hey, August 15th, we're gonna be practicing at Five Star Stadium in Thornton, or we're gonna be practicing,
Exactly.
wherever
Yep.
in Highlands Ranch and
Yeah.
maybe Colorado Springs or something like that. I don't know if they'll go that far, but you know what I mean. But I think that'd be a cool thing and with some advanced planning. Still make it free, but make an event like that, that'd be pretty cool. But as it was, Matt, it was a cool environment. And I thought, and actually, I'm sure you've seen photos of it too. Like we had a photographer down there, and I've seen other photos. The photos look cool. It's just kind of cool to see these photos of the Buffs like practicing at this high school stadium. This is just my personal thing here, but like I thought the colors popped. It was just kind of fun looking at the photos.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. The way the sun set right over the field there.
Yeah,
It was a gorgeous Colorado evening like we always have in the summer. We're
right.
quite blessed to live where we live.
Yeah. So let's talk about some impressions of what we actually saw. It was a fun event. We get all that. But people want to hear what we actually
Sure.
thought of this team. So let me get your initial impression overall. Like, what did you think when you watched this team live, and understanding that this was totally vanilla. As Coach Prime said, they weren't doing their signals because they were very understanding that people were going to film this, and they did. There were a lot of people that were filming it, and you saw on social media there was plays. They knew that, so they didn't show a whole lot, including their signs. But understanding all that, what did you think? What were your impressions?
First off, what jumps at you is they're just better defensively. And I think as far as the depth chart goes, I know that you had asked him about that afterwards, Coach
Mhm.
Prime. You said, when is the depth chart kind of start to get ironed out? And he said, right up until kickoff, which I believe probably up front, because in
Yeah,
my opinion, they're not set up front yet. I don't think they're close. They're figuring some things out along the way, though. And I liked his response about, we do things just in case, because injuries happen and adversity strikes, and you got to be able to have guys fill different roles, especially up front on the offensive line. Now, that being said, I think what really jumps out, like I said, is just how much better they are defensively. I
yeah,
think up front, where they'll surprise people the most is probably with how much push they should be able to get. I'm hoping so, because Shane Cokes looks better, and this is a
yep,
guy who could have been in an NFL camp right now if he chose to be, but he wanted to come back and play for Coach Sapp and get better, and he did. And then, of course, you add Nwankwo, which, all indications so far, he looks solid. He looks like
yeah,
he's very good. I liked what they kind of did at the end of the year. Some of the guys who had returned, it looks like Amari McNeil maybe slipping down that depth chart a little bit. I don't know what's going on there. Taurine Carter, another guy that catches the eye. Tafik Thomas, obviously. And Quinn Barnes is a big guy.
yep,
So I think that's important interior, because in order to get the pass rush, you really need to be able to get some sort of interior push. But that's where you come away the most impressed if you are a longtime Buff fan. And for those who really haven't been paying attention, very closely for longer than last year,
yeah,
DU has not had pass rushers in the
yep,
last 2 decades. I'd say, what, Brian, like after 2007, 8, 9 ish, after that, I was thinking about this, and I talked about this on my show this morning, that outside of Jimmy Gilbert in 2016, who was the best we've seen probably in like the
yep.
last 15 years,
Hmm.
you probably have to go back to Chidera, Uzuduribe.
Yeah, he was pretty solid, but not a
Not like this,
to
you
my
know what I
knowledge, he
mean?
was not a
Yeah.
double-digit sack guy.
No,
If I
no.
if I looked up, it was 7, 8 sacks, which is good. But
I think
yeah,
I think they got plenty of guys that can get to 7 to 8. Double
yeah,
digits is a lot. Double digits is a lot. Now I think they're capable of it, but
yeah,
they actually have a really solid rotation between Hayes and Green and Walker and McCoy. I think they
yeah,
have some pieces where I at least in my time around CU, which is now what, like 15 years now. I well, in 25 years of being in Boulder, but 15
yeah.
years of being around the program, I don't remember a better pass rushing group. Do you?
No, I don't. And again, you can look at individuals. I thought Carson Wells was pretty good, but there was
And
nobody.
Okunlola, sorry,
Yeah,
Okunlola. Everybody
yeah,
gets mad if you don't mention every last person. So
right.
Okunlola, we didn't forget about Sam.
Yeah. A guy like Carson Wells, I thought he was pretty good, but there
Yeah,
was
sure.
nobody on the other side, so he was limited in what he could do. And so,
Yeah,
yes, there's some individuals along the way. I don't think we've ever seen a group. I'm not sure we've seen really a duo that's been impressive, but
yeah,
we can look at this group right now and say, "Ooh, there's like 3, 4, 5." Coach Sapp had the comment the other day. You got 5 guys on a 2-lane highway. There's 2 spots out
yeah,
there, but you got Okunlola, like you mentioned. You got Deion Hayes. You got BJ Green out there. You got Arden Walker, who's having a good camp from what we understand. And Tajay McCoy is coming along big time. And so you get all these guys. It's like, yeah, I don't think we've ever seen a group this deep. I think that to me is something that anybody that thinks the Buffs aren't going to be very good is not looking at that part of it. Because I think that's such a key to the Buffs being good this year is how good that defensive line is. And I
huge.
think that's a major upgrade over last year.
Yeah, and that's clearly on paper. And look, on the field, it looks solid. It's
Yeah.
really hard to tell from practice, if I'm just being honest, because they're not going good on good. And
Yeah.
there are some things where you kind of look at it and go, shoot, that's the number one offense going against the twos. Shouldn't you be, maybe a little better there? And, same thing, vice versa. That's the number one defense going against Ryan Staub. Shouldn't you? I mean, they owned him. I thought they had a
Yeah.
they had a handle on him, but there's some things where you kind of just go, I don't know. So it's hard to tell in that type of a practice that's a one
Mhm.
off at a high school field, specifically with the kicking. Somebody asked me about the kicking, and I was like, I really don't put much stock into any kicks that were made. I don't think it's
Yeah.
representative of what's happening at all. It's a different depth perception. Everything's different about it. So
Yeah, and the flip side of all that is you have to wonder, are they really good because this offensive line's not as good as we thought?
sure.
Or what? Because, we saw Tajay McCoy get several sacks the other night, and he was with the two defense going against the one offense and beating them. And so you have to wonder about this offensive line. That's the other takeaway I had from the other night was, and again, it's one practice, it's hard to totally judge. But the other takeaway I had from that was this offensive line. I was like, I'm not sure, Matt. There's some concerns there for me still, and I know Khalil Benson wasn't there, but um, one guy missing shouldn't be the difference. I mean, they had kind of a rough night, I thought.
Well, I think there's a couple parts of it, and let me just round out the one part about defense before I get to that.
Yeah,
With that edge group, hopefully with an ability to stop the run at a more effective rate and actually generate pressure on opposing passers, which,
Mhm.
knock on wood, they're going to be able to do that and create a little havoc in the backfield, maybe some TFLs. That DBs group is going to benefit greatly because of
Yep,
their improved ability to get after the passer. And their DBs, they got to be up there with the best in the Big 12. Like, I
yeah,
don't know everybody's room extensively, but I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a better room. The addition of Preston Hodge, I'm going to start calling him wingman because he's always by your side. You know what I
yeah,
mean? This is a guy who just doesn't leave his assignment. I think he's going to make a ton of plays, a bunch of PBUs. So, and McKinney had a really nice play as well, and he's a big, long, rangy corner. Coach Prime mentioned, 7 to 8 NFL guys on that defense being drafted. Maybe,
yeah,
at least getting a shot,
yep.
probably. I
Mhm.
mean, I can definitely see where he's coming from there. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the DBs of the edge group.
Well, real
And
quick, let
then
me let me add to that real quick. I mean,
yeah,
Colton Hood's coming along too, and
yeah. I'm glad you
they
brought him up.
and we didn't have. I mean, we didn't get to see Travis Hunter. They rested him that night, and so. But I'm sort of glad we didn't see Travis because we got to see more of Colton. We know Travis what he can do, right?
Right,
But we got to
right.
see more of Colton Hood, and Preston Hodge in that slot. Colton Hood's coming along, and I'm not so sure he won't be a starter. And Carter Stoutmeyer, who he's now listed as safety, was playing some corner though. I loved him
Yeah,
in corner last year as a true freshman. If he's that versatile Swiss Army knife DB where he can play around, he's a really good player that's not in that starting group that you have to factor in.
agreed completely. And I'm glad you brought up Colton Hood because I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and if you got a formation where you got three corners on the field, there are plays where that one of those guys doesn't have to be Travis because
Yeah.
you've got McKinney, Hodge,
Mhm.
and Colton Hood. And that is a luxury where, hey, Travis needs a blow because let's say it's a turnover, quick change of direction. Travis is, on a go route. Well,
Mhm.
now he doesn't have to be right back out there, even though he probably still would be. I mean, just
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
be honest. But at the
yeah.
same time, that's where I think a big focus was this offseason because that's the case offensively too at wide receiver. He doesn't have to be in on every first down.
Yeah.
Now you have LeJontay and Jimmy, and now you got Will Shepard and Omarion Miller's there and Draylon and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even Cordell Russell, there was a big play he made, which is, I
Yeah.
thought, exciting. It was the first like big play I'd seen him make. So, and yes, I mean, you're probably even forgetting guys there at receiver, just
Right.
bringing up those names. So, look, I'm with you on that DB group. They should have pretty good depth, including at the safety position. I think they like Savion Riley a lot too. I
Mhm.
think he'll play this year for sure. And Stoutmeyer, let's be honest. So let's say Travis, what he's corner 5 right now, would you say?
Stoutmeyer, yeah,
Yeah. So
probably.
he's the fifth corner. I think he's due to play a good amount again. Because remember, I mean, because Cormani never got there last year, Carter played a huge role in this team. Now it was like
Yeah.
on and off, and there was Omarion Cooper in there, but
Mhm.
Carter was a player. He's got plenty of snaps under his belt. So I think they'd be comfortable if they had to put him out there.
Well, there were times last year that Carter was corner two,
100%.
as a
Oh
true
yeah.
freshman. And so you have what we think is probably an improved Carter Stoutmeyer as your corner five. That
You're in a
tells you
good
right there
spot.
that group is much better. Like, because I honestly, from what I saw from Carter last year, would have felt comfortable with Carter being corner two this year. I don't know about you. Maybe not as comfortable as now, but I would have felt
I
like, oh,
like him more as corner 5. Let's
I
just
do
say
too.
that. And
I
I
do
think they're in
too.
a great spot. But I get
But
your point that you're
but
high on the kid.
I
Yeah.
don't think they would have been in trouble if Carter was corner two this
Uh,
year. but the fact that he's corner 5 is like, ooh, okay, they're pretty good. But he
Sure.
might be safety 4, right? And
Sure.
so I don't know about
I
wherever he
get your
is.
point. I get your
The
point.
point is that I would have been comfortable with him in a bigger role than what he's going to have. I love him as corner
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
and sort of that backup safety. I think I'm really high on the kid. I think that next year when there's no Travis, things like that, Carter could be a starter, a really good player. So
Don't
that's the
even want to
point.
think about that yet.
Yeah, that's way down the road. But the point is, when a guy like Carter Stoutmeyer is in your depth and not even your starting lineup, you're in good shape.
Hey, last note on the DB room. I was told by somebody behind the scenes the Broncos love Travis. So
Yeah,
everybody can keep that in their back pocket. And they think they could be in range next year. So George Payton, their general manager, was at All City Stadium, and so was David Shaw, who was hired,
yeah,
former Stanford head coach, as a personnel executive now for Denver.
yeah,
So keep that one in your back pocket.
yeah.
Which
It,
opposite of Patrick Surtain, that'd be pretty nasty.
that'd be pretty nasty. And then throw him in a receiver. Who knows? Let's switch over to offense now. I made some comments about the offensive line. Would you agree? I mean, it was kind of a rough night, I thought, for that group.
They're just not set yet. And
Yeah,
Tyler Johnson is coming back from injury, right?
yeah, I believe so. He's
I
been
think
kind of in
so.
and out. Yeah,
Yeah.
Khalil
And
Khalil Benson for sure has
yeah,
been
no, I
out.
talked to him at media day. He
Yeah,
was dealing with a little something there, which I don't know how long it's going to take him. But he was in
mhm,
pads. He was suited up. Yeah, they're just not set. I thought Tyler Brown was fine at right tackle.
mhm.
Kareem Harden inside at right guard. Look, I think the other part of it is they're not going to look like a well-oiled machine week one, no matter what. Especially
Yeah,
because you're building chemistry with 5 new guys. I will say, like, there are some moments where, yeah, Jordan Seaton looks like a freshman, but there are also some moments where he looks like an animal.
yeah,
So I think by just having him in there alone, really, I do believe you're better. Like, he'll have some moments this year where certainly we saw it, the first play of the spring game where he'll get beat. He's a freshman. It happens to every freshman. I don't care who you are, but
right.
there are going to be some moments where he takes somebody, from the first level to like the 5th level and drives them into the dirt. And you're going to go, wow, look at him just open up the entire left side of that line for whatever back out of the backfield.
Yeah,
That's another conversation, by the way. But yes, it wasn't like, wow, Shador has all this time to throw. The offense, I'll just say this, there was a lot of like rave reviews. I don't know. I thought they struggled during team to move the ball at times.
yeah,
It wasn't a clean operation. I know that they dumbed things down a little bit, but I
yeah,
definitely had I will say I had some other people come up to me going, how do they look to you? As if
mhm,
to say, like, that I thought I'd see more. But again, they dumbed the offense down. I didn't it's one practice. I'm not going to put too much into it.
right.
I didn't think it was their best practice. I'll just say that. And I think even Coach Prime alluded to as much at the beginning of the press conference when he was asked about the energy. He's like, yeah, I'm never satisfied. I think there were some
Yeah,
things that, and it went long. To their credit, they stayed out there for a while, and they went longer than they normally go to give fans a show. So yeah, the offensive line, Brian, it's a work in progress still. What
yeah.
I was surprised at more than anything is that they just don't have more set rotations now. Now maybe Benson's part of that, but he has also been working with other teams, right? He hasn't been exclusively first team, has he? Because
No,
not from
I
what
think
I've seen.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
he's
they've
been some
mixed all
second
these
team
guys
as
up.
well. They mixed it
Yeah,
all up, and
yeah,
we did see even some of those first team guys playing with the third team
yeah,
offense the other night. And I'll add too, Matt, real
yeah.
quick, that I also understand that uh, that it's harder to get that cohesion on the offensive line. It's going to take a little bit longer than like on the defensive line. Cohesion's not
Sure.
as important, and so I do think that at this stage, your defense is going to be ahead of your offense because a lot of times those defensive linemen can just go, right? And offensive line, you need that cohesion a little bit. And when you've got a couple guys that might be banged up and they're in and out, it's hard to get that. I do think this is a group that can be good and might need September to really gel. But
Let's just hope it doesn't take too long.
yeah, you hope it doesn't. September's a tough stretch too. So
You got to win right away this year.
yeah,
If you want to get where they want to get, they got to win right out of the chute. They have to.
this is a line that could probably benefit from having preseason games, but you don't get preseason games.
Get them ready.
Get them ready. So
What
they
else are you
got
going to do? I'll say this. He successfully went out and they're bigger for
yeah,
sure. And he has more
mhm,
options, which
right,
is which
right,
is way better because last year they had very few options. So the depth is significantly improved. And I do think in time they'll get better. But again, I mean, you're you're going against your twos in an environment like that. And you think that maybe, okay, maybe there'd be a little bit more here or there. But again, it's one practice. You know, it's late at night on a Friday and you got to get on the bus. You've been on the
Yeah.
bus for over an hour to get down there sitting in traffic. So I don't hold one against them. But again, it's not like I think that this is a team that's, going to compete for the title this year. I mean, my
Right.
opinion.
Well, and
So
the other thing too is I think I'm of the opinion a lot can change in 12 days. To whereas
100%.
they
Yeah.
didn't look, maybe they didn't look great on a Friday, but 12 days later or 13 days later, whatever it is, when you're going to play Thursday night against North Dakota State, you can look a lot better. You can get a lot accomplished in that time. And so,
My opinion of them didn't really change. I'll just say that. Like my
yeah,
opinion of what they're going to be able to accomplish didn't really change after seeing what I saw on Friday.
okay.
Yeah, I
I
think
would,
maybe just tempered it, if anything. Like, okay, it's just a work in progress. You still have
yeah,
46 new transfers, and
yeah,
and it'll just take a little bit of time, like it did last year. Their offense was buzzing. They had a great game plan for TCU,
yeah,
and TCU didn't know what to expect. Now, I mean, North Dakota State, to whatever degree, will know what to expect more than TCU did last year, and they're going to have to come into hostile territory on
yeah,
a Thursday night in an environment that they're not used to playing in. So
yeah.
I think it's going to be fun.
I would say for me, my final takeaway is I came with a better impression of the defense
Yeah.
and maybe a little more measured concern about the offensive line. But in general, it didn't change anything about what I think this team can do. I've had them at
Yeah.
7-5, 8-4 range. I still think that there was a lot of good things I saw. One last thing before we get out of here, Matt. Give me one offensive and one defensive player that stood out to you the most on Friday night, and I'll give
Good
mine as well.
Good question. One offensive and one defensive player that stood out to me the most. Let me start offensive. Brandon Hood. I have
Mhm.
concerns about their running back room in general. I don't think that they're in any sort of bad spot. I just don't know that there's one special back in there. And I don't think
Yeah.
you necessarily have to have one. It's going to be a by committee approach once again. But when I'm looking at a guy who has burst to get to the edge, and
Mhm.
he's got a nice build to him. He might be one of their better all-around backs, even as a true freshman. I think it's going to be Charlie, and I think it's going to be Dallin early.
Yeah.
And look, Charlie Offerdahl, for whatever it's worth, is going to be your starting running back against North Dakota State. Unless they're sandbagging, which I don't believe they are, they wouldn't do that. I believe he is going to be your starting running back, and it's going to be him and Hayden who alternate carries.
Yeah.
So, to whatever degree you want to read into that, I think that's not the way it's going to finish. I like what I see out of Isaiah Augustive. I like what I see out of Brandon Hood. Michael Welch will see in pass protection, but he runs hard.
He
So
didn't play a lot the other night. I was surprised by
no,
that.
maybe he's dinged up, but
Maybe.
when you
Yeah.
see out of Brandon Hood, he's just got size.
Yeah.
He's got the size there. Defensively, that's a good question. DJ McKinney is going to be really impressive. I want to just give the defensive shout to just the whole front seven. I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And
Mhm.
shout out to Trevor Woods, who now looks the part.
Yeah.
And at least in my opinion, like he may not be the biggest linebacker, but he's in a much better position to play in his body than he was at that stage last year. Shiloh looks like he's ready to go. Like he's just chomping at the bit to get that yellow jersey taken off.
Right.
And
Right.
he looks fast. I mean, he looks like he hasn't been able to hit anything. So I imagine he's been working on conditioning a lot. So he looks maybe a step faster than he was last year.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll go on offense. The two obvious ones, and I'm not going to go with those. So I want to get something different. Will Shepard on offense was
Well, yeah,
fantastic. Tajay
yeah.
McCoy on defense was fantastic. So I'm not going to. I want to go separate from that, but I'm going to give a different one on offense. Morgan Pearson, the
He
tight
did
end.
catch my eye. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I didn't notice him a ton, but when I did, I was like, okay, that looks like a tight end. And I saw him catch a couple passes. I'm like, all right, that looks pretty good. And so um, I came away from that. That was another takeaway I had was their tight end room looks like a tight end room. It's not, some converter receivers. I think Sam Hart, Morgan Pearson, Savell Smalls, that might be a solid. They're not going to win the Mackey Award. There's no Mackey Award winner in there, but that might be a decent tight end room. Morgan Pearson, I thought looked impressive, and Sam Hart too. And then on defense, I'm gonna go Colton Hood just because he was to me so impressive. I thought that he looked better than maybe I expected him to that night. He was with the starting group with we thought we were going to see Travis, but he wasn't out there, and so Colton Hood stepped in. I thought he looked really good.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. A couple other, honorable mentions. Jimmy Horn, he's gotten his body. I talked to him at media day. He said he's up like 5 pounds muscle. Not
Yeah,
easiest for him to put on a ton of weight, but it is muscle, and he
yeah,
looks faster. He
mhm,
needed to get a little bit thicker because he was pretty easy to knock off the ball. He struggled to break tackles last year. I think that's important, especially catches in traffic. Um, Omarion Miller, kind of the forgotten guy in that receiver room based
yeah,
upon, how big of a game he had against USC. He is a freak athlete. I mean,
yep,
he is a great athlete. And whenever he gets on the field, it's never a bad thing. That's another one there. I like your mention of Colton Hood because it really brings out the depth. I'll go Preston Hodge again. What I call him, wingman, because he's always
yeah,
by your side. Yeah,
yeah,
that or glue because he's stuck on you. One of the two.
yeah.
Because I'm excited about his potential.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of honorable mentions. There's some guys that stood out. Shane Cokes, that looked pretty good. Chidozie Nwankwo looked pretty solid. I'm glad you mentioned Trevor Woods because he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And I like him in that spot.
And Tyler Brown. And Tyler Brown. Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't mean to interrupt you, but Tyler
yeah,
Brown, got to give a shout out to him because I am hyped up to watch him play this year.
yeah, he'll be a lot of fun. Jeremiah Brown too. Made a
Yeah.
couple plays out there, and
Yeah.
and I will say, you mentioned the field goals, and I agree with you. But Mata hit a 50-yarder,
Did he?
and
I was at the other end. I didn't see like
yeah,
the 50
I didn't
view.
see it live, but I saw somebody posted a video, and I was impressed by that because that's been the one knock on him is he does that he's automatic inside 40, but beyond that you
Even
never
Coach
know.
Prime told you afterwards.
Yeah,
You can't tell until you get into a game. I
right,
mean, you asked him about the kickoffs, which was a great
right,
question. I even asked Jace Feely at media day about the
yeah,
kickoffs, which
yeah,
I don't know how we feel about that, but that was a huge problem last year.
yeah. I just wrote something about that today. 44% of CU's kickoffs were touchbacks, 74% for the opponent, which
Yeah,
is
no, that sounds about right.
that,
That sounds about right.
that's an
Yeah.
insane difference. But anyway,
And
uh,
at altitude,
and an
that's a
altitude, yeah.
serious problem. Serious
Right, right.
problem. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But I do want to give a shout out for Mata because he hit a 50-yarder. Um,
You don't
and
miss,
so
right?
and if what he's saying on some of the videos, he's got a stronger leg this year. That would be
I
great for
love
the
it.
Buffs. So
They
so
need it.
awesome. Well, hey, we got another week coming up this week, and we're getting close to game week, and you got to get some rest because you're getting up early and doing morning shows a lot. So
Yeah.
Matt, we're gonna get out of here, and thanks for doing this again, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we'll talk soon.
Always, buddy. Talk to you later.